Call July 25th regular city council meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call shows everyone's here. For approval of the minutes of July 11th, 2016.
I move the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the bills?
No.
None, which is always good. Approval of the agenda. Is there anything being deleted or added to the agenda tonight?
There is, Mr. Mayor, two items. Ms. Josie Kearns is unavailable due to family obligations. I'm requesting removal of the Cultural Arts Commission report under new business item number 3. And under new business item 10, that was submitted as a discussion item. It's listed as consider approval. It should state simply a discussion item.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Chief Collins. Along those lines, actually, in my request, I requested that this be added to the end of the agenda. The gentleman who's helped push this project along, he has his work schedule is hit or miss, and he was actually able to, he's in here now, and I was requesting if we could actually add this as first on the agenda, if there's no objections with council.
We could move it to wherever council would like. I might suggest substituting it for number 3 that just came off.
Yeah, I would be okay with that, certainly.
I move the agenda as amended.
All
I'll
in
second.
favor? She said support. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a presentation. Chief Mike Kennedy.
Okay, thank you for the time tonight. Certainly when we have staff that do outstanding work, we like to recognize them, and this was the case with this. On June 25th, 2016, South Lyon Fire Police and Huron Valley Ambulance were dispatched to a resident on Clements Lane in the city of South Lyon for a male patient who was unresponsive with labored breathing. Upon arrival at the residence, South Lyon Police Sergeant Bakke observed the distressed patient laying in the hallway of the residence. Officer Brooks arrived shortly thereafter and assisted Sergeant Bakke, who had started resuscitation measures. The officers prepared the AED, the automated external defibrillator, and administered a shock. Around this time, the South Lyon Fire Department arrived on scene and started basic life support, along with establishing an airway, followed shortly thereafter by Huron Valley Ambulance. The patient did regain a pulse on scene and was transported to Providence Novi Hospital. And on this incident happened on June 25th. And on July 1st, the patient walked out of the hospital on his own power with no neurological deficit. So literally went from no pulse, no breathing to about a week later walking out of the hospital. And it's really a perfect example of all 3 of our first responder agencies in the city working together and literally saving a life. So if you could congratulate me and give them a round of applause for some great work. Real quick, I should list the names. I apologize. From South Lyon Police Department was Sergeant Douglas Bakke and Officer Tracy Brooks. Huron Valley Ambulance was paramedic Andrew Bentley, who's here tonight, along with Rodrigo Francica, who was unable to be here. And from South Lyon Fire Department, the first arriving crew were firefighter Lauren Carlington and firefighter Ryan Carlington, who are here, along with Deputy Chief Mike Weir, Captain Corey Armstrong, Lieutenant Jeff Noschel, and firefighter Cindy Conrad. So, again, thank you all for outstanding work.
Okay, it's the time we come to the public comment this evening. Does anybody have anything they'd like to speak about that's not on the agenda, or?
Hello, Carl Richards, 390 Lennox. Just wanted to mention a few things, but first I want to say, Council and Mayor, Mr. Mayor, personally, I don't mind trying to limit myself to 6 minutes and targeting myself and disciplining myself in what I say. I should have had enough training years ago on how to speak in public, okay? And I know I tend to ramble sometimes. And anyway, I feel comfortable with limiting myself, and I think Ted started that quite a bit, long time ago, really. And other people, I believe in free speech also, but I'm just letting you know how I feel about it. First, I'd like to mention these little bottles here. Last Friday, our water department came around, and they wanted me to participate in the program that's been going on for several years, where we make a test sample by filling it up from inside faucet. I plan to use a bathtub, and we're testing for copper and lead, I think. Is that correct, Bob?
Yes, it is.
Testing for copper and lead. And these samples gets taken to a lab and sent out of town, and then the records come back, and I'm one of 30 people community-wide that's doing this time. And I thought I'd share that experience with you. And maybe many of the rest of you have done that already. But at least it shows that our community water department is on top of things, okay, and working to keep our water pure for drinking, even if we don't have a water softener in every unit any place in town, you know. Anyway, second item I'd like to just bring up, the tube mill is back to work, but they've been going slow, folks, and they had the presence of mind to shut down last Friday and Saturday. They send the guys home, not out of union contract rules or anything. It's just regard for the men, okay, in a situation. And the hot mill is a specialized place, and it takes weeks sometimes to heat it up to proper temperature slowly. I can hear a roar from my house when everything's going well. The absence of it is noticeable. Okay, number 3 item for short notice. In case any of you have noticed, there's 3 very large, dominating light poles sticking up on Lafayette Street, one across from, right next in front of the Catholic Church, and the other 2 on our city, South Lyon, Bank of America, okay, and the other one is the Video World, and that is Township. And these are brand new. They've been there a couple of weeks, maybe a little more, and they're part of the project that we worked on through the winter and you've approved to go through with the crossing safety business. And I don't know, I imagine those poles weigh at least 3,000 pounds apiece. I believe they're spun aluminum, but they may be steel, lightweight steel. Certainly the base is steel. But I imagine they cost $7,500 a piece. Okay? Maybe I'm light on that. I don't know. But I'm letting you know that progress is being made on that front, which you all voted on some time ago. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Good evening. I'm Tom Duncan. I'm here with my sons Scott and Randy Duncan. We're owners of Duncan Disposal. I'm sure you're familiar with what we do in the town. Well, we're here tonight to do a couple things. Number one is to thank you for the 9 years that we've had the privilege of servicing your communities and our own houses, because we all live in South Lyon too. But also to let you know that we have sold our business to Rizzo Environmental Services, and they are taking over as of today. Matter of fact, they first serviced the city today. The next thing I'd like for you to ask you to do is, this does require permission by you for them to be assigned the contract with the city, and we'd like for you to put that on your next available agenda and make approval of that for the formality's sake, and the transition will be completed at that time. So again, it's something that we've been thinking about briefly, but nonetheless, we thought this was a good opportunity to join with a really good quality waste management firm, not waste management, but waste hauling company. The Rizzo Group is made up of two sons also and their dad. Chuck and Jeff are the sons, and Charlie is the dad. Their main location is in Sterling Heights, and they've recently opened a location in Wayne, Michigan, too. But they're not a small company. They're very capable in terms of handling the size of the city of Southline, and well, actually, as large as half of the city of Detroit. They are one of the contractors who were awarded the contract a few years ago. The other one was Advanced Disposal. The other half of the city went to Rizzo, and they're doing a remarkable job. And they're the side of the city that gets all the compliments for how well they're doing it. But they also are handling about 37 other large communities around the Detroit perimeter. And so they're very capable. They've got over 450 trucks. I can't even imagine that many trucks parked in our parking lot. But they've got a lot of support group, great management, and they're very friendly and ordinary kinds of people. So I think you'll really enjoy working with them. Also, it's good to know that the unit manager that we had placed overseeing the South Line, the one that we've just coordinated to be the manager just the last couple weeks, or last couple months rather, he will be staying on with them, and he will be still assigned to South Line. So it's going to be a great transition, I believe. I think you're going to be thoroughly happy with the service they're able to perform for you. And again, our thanks goes out to you and the residents for the many years that we have serviced the city. But I still haven't gotten them to credit my house. I still pay for my own service at the house. So now I guess all my hope is gone that I'm ever going to get a credit. But we really appreciate your loyalty to our company, and we always have your back. Thanks again.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Anyone else? Okay. Old business. Police chief employment agreement.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've been working on this for about a month now. Last Thursday, city attorney and I met and worked off of the contract version that he proposed, the draft. From my perspective, we worked out everything that would have been of concern to me. There were still a couple of questions regarding the interplay between FMLA and the short and long-term disability, and some of the definitions that would constitute termination for cause, only with respect to severance. We did away with the just cause clause that had been in my original version. The police chief would remain an at-will employee. As far as I'm concerned, I would like to sign the contract tomorrow, with the understanding, of course, that the city attorney does have some work that he wants to do to clarify some of the language, and I'll let him speak to that.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I do want to go through this quickly so that there's some fundamental understanding of what's in here. The duties and hours of work are in sections 1 and 2. Those are not controversial. Section 3 identifies the salary that will be paid. That may be subject to the non-union employee pay raise, and we've worded it so that the chief would be entitled to any of those pay increases. Fringe benefits, the idea here is to merely restate the fringe benefits that the chief receives and not change them in any way. The term, this is one of the concepts that I still would like some input from council possibly. Basically what this is after talking with Chief Collins, he requested a 4-year. I was inclined to do a shorter period of time, but most of the contracts that I've seen on this are once you reach the end of the term and there's a failure to either request a renegotiation which would allow you to open up the terms, it continues indefinitely, essentially, until it's terminated. And what that does is it provides, Chief Collins would get his severance unless he chooses to leave, or he's terminated for cause, which is another provision we'll get to. And I'm not a big fan of this. I still would like the opportunity to come up with a way, and I've tried to posture this in the agenda note. Is there a way to have this terminate on its own terms where Chief Collins remains employed and the ending of the contract is not the end of his employment? But given the time frame that I was under, I proceeded. Basically, the term comes down to, unless you want to renegotiate, which you could do by agreement anytime, it would be a 4-year term. You have to give notice in advance of that expiration that you want to renegotiate or agree to extend or renew it. Would be another way to do it. But really, that term starts to become somewhat meaningless as far as, unless you want to renegotiate. That's really what it triggers. It doesn't terminate the employment or the contract. Because if you terminate without cause, it's going to trigger the severance. So that's the term issue. It is clarified in the contract that this is at-will employment. Chief Collins could always resign or retire, and that would not trigger a severance obligation. The termination clause is in Section 10. I have outlined the reasons that would be for cause that would provide for the city not paying severance. So basically what this comes down to is, if it's, to use kind of just a vernacular, is if it's his fault that he's being terminated, we don't pay him severance. There is a procedure. We have to provide him with what the reason is, and he's going to have, in order to address the chief's concerns regarding the protection issue that he's seeking this contract for, it would come to council for some hearing, although I don't think I can take the termination right away from the city manager that's provided for under the charter. So it's really just I view this more as a procedure to vet the reason for the termination, and it would have to go through that process before it could become effective. Chief has requested some additional clarification of those for-cause reasons. I've done some additional research on that between our meeting on Thursday and today. I think there is a way to clarify some of that language, but it's not going to be in any great detail. Again, I do think that this type of contract shifts the landscape considerably for the city. I think it imposes a financial obligation, and it also changes the leverage and authority of the city manager. I think it also has the likelihood of setting a precedent for future police chiefs and other department heads. Another section is the severance section I'd like council to weigh in on. I've matched the city manager's current 6-month period of severance. If council were to have different thoughts on the period that's a period of appropriate severance, that could be considered as well. The disability provision is also, if the chief, this is largely matched up to the city manager's contract language. Again, this is for lack of a better way of phrasing it, the fault issue. If the chief is injured outside of work, becomes ill or unable to do his job after a certain period of time, and I've put in a 90-day window, he could be terminated without having to pay severance. And that's aside from any of the FMLA, other obligations, or the statutory requirements that you might have to abide by. So those are the highlights of the proposed contract. Are there any questions, comments?
Well, I certainly have my own comments, yeah. Nothing direct to you, though.
Would we have to amend the charter then?
No. This still remains at will.
But it's
It's really just whether the reason exists, the reason for, or the lack thereof, would trigger a severance. So the authority still lies, I believe, with the city manager. It does not violate or contradict the charter in any way. That authority remains with the chief administrative officer. It's simply whether you have a reason or you don't, or the different reasons that might occur for a separation or termination would trigger a severance issue.
This is still a for cause agreement when it comes down to it, because what happens is, if it's with cause, then there's no severance, essentially. And if it's without cause, then there's a severance.
Well, but it's also, each party can terminate at will. That's clear in the language. Each party can terminate with or without a reason at any time.
Right, but if there's
Certain
without a
facts
reason.
around the termination
Right,
may
With the
trigger
penalty,
the
yeah.
obligation to pay severance.
right. That's my point. So essentially,
It's still an at-will termination.
I know it's still an at-will, but when you look at the bottom line, if
I
we.
disagree.
Well, I don't.
Well, it's really a distinction without a difference,
The
though.
for-cause language is simply a mechanism and a structure. We know something, the case law provides for what for-cause or with-cause is. It provides a mechanism through which the city could terminate the chief of police and not have to pay severance.
Right, for a reason.
But it's not you are not restricted to terminating only for cause.
Oh, I understand
You
that.
can terminate at will.
And pay a 6-month severance.
Yes.
Right. So essentially what we're doing is we are changing the setup within the city, because even though you have the at-will language in the contract, any employee, any department head, who I'm sure everyone's going to line up now if we approve this, is going to want their own contract. Aren't you essentially taking authority away from the city manager? Because you have a situation where these department heads have contracts now, and it could lead to essentially a department head saying, you know what, I don't have to listen to you. You know, you can fire me, but I know I'm going to get 6 months. I know I'm going to get everything like that, and essentially, that's my concern. You're taking away the authority of our city manager.
You're not taking the authority away. You're not affecting the authority. I would characterize it more as maybe the leverage.
Right.
There is certainly a relationship between the chief administrative officer and the department heads within the city of South Lyon. To have a contract that, whether you have certain reasons for a termination by the city, if the city were to terminate, if there's under certain circumstances, that may or may not trigger a severance. It changes the leverage. It doesn't change the authority. There's a cause and effect. It doesn't change the authority.
But right now, as it stands without the contract, it's at will, and there is no severance, right?
Yes.
And the contract that's before us is 6 months of salary and benefits in the event that in the event that the city manager wishes to terminate the employment without cause.
Right. So the severance would only be triggered upon a city termination. If the chief decides to retire or resign, that would not trigger severance. The disability is to me, the city should not have to pay severance if he's unable to do his duties due to circumstances outside of your control as a city. Likewise, that really defaults back to the existing circumstance.
What is to stop every employee in this city from coming to us and saying we want a contract? If we
Leverage.
set this precedent right now, if we give the contract to the chief, and Bob, I'm just using you as an example because I'm looking at you right now. But Bob, I'd be a fool. You'd be a fool if you didn't do this. And then what about Lisa? What about other employees? What about Lieutenant? It's getting to a point, it's a slippery slope, and that's my concern.
I recognize that issue, but you have the authority to enter into any of these contracts or say no.
Mr. Mayor.
But what is their basis for saying no? We don't have any, that's my concern. If Bob were to come up to us and say, okay, you gave a contract to Lloyd, I want a contract, and we say no, precedent has already been established.
It doesn't establish any authority that you have to grant or enter into another contract with another department head.
Okay. And that's going to hold up.
You can't prevent somebody from suing, but I don't recognize an easy cause of action
Prior actions doesn't count
I don't think
to
so,
anything.
not in that
Okay.
context.
Oh, sure. Okay.
All right, thank you. I have some of the same concerns. I think that this sets a precedent that the other department heads will probably want to enjoy as well. And in my notes here, I also use the term slippery slope. I was looking at the personnel policy as well as this proposed contract, and it's my perception anyway that protection is what the general purpose is or main purpose is of this contract. And I think we could resolve that if we changed our personnel policies, which refer to department heads as supervisors and supervisors, but doesn't really talk about the city manager as a supervisor. If we changed our personnel policies to say that any discipline to a department head over and above oral reprimand requires the consent of council, wouldn't that solve the same problem and same issue that's brought up in terms of protection? And I think we should give that some thought.
So my first concern on that would be to make sure that you do not violate by policy a provision in the charter. And without knowing what the exact language is, I can't answer that question. If I recall, the personnel policy also does provide for a grievance procedure,
Correct.
which I think you may be familiar with from past issues. So there is a grievance procedure in the personnel manual.
That's correct. And even in the proposed contract here on about the third page, number 9, it's agreed that the chief can be disciplined or discharged, yada, yada, yada. And only after a hearing at which a chief shall be given the right to be represented. Who holds the hearing?
That's the chief's
It will be
language.
city council, but I
That's the
think that
chief's
should be.
language. That's the chief's language?
That's the language on page 3 of this contract under number 9, discipline or discharge.
Well, I noticed in my packet, I didn't have the contract that I prepared. So I only see one contract, which is Chief Collins' proposed contract in my packet.
I have two in my pack.
Does anybody have one with the city logo on the top
Yeah.
left? Everybody does? Right. Yep. So there had been, so there's no, so it's discipline provided for as in he'd be treated like any other employee under the personnel manual, which is what he is now. The termination, and again, the termination, the just cause or with cause provision is simply a mechanism by which you can determine whether he's entitled to severance or not.
So just for an example, in the year 2025, we have a city manager and a police chief who doesn't get along. And so the city manager fires the police chief, and the police chief gets 6 months pay and benefits. And the council, none of us would be there, of course, be more reasonable, are so outraged by that behavior that they fire the city manager, and now we're paying 1 year of pay and benefits to probably the 2 highest paid employees of the city, and then still have to replace those 2 employees. I just don't see that as a scenario that we should allow to exist.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It's like Tim has something to respond.
I think that's the hidden financial impact of the slippery slope that's been identified.
Thanks.
If all the department heads have contracts with 6-month severance provisions, the timing by which you would pay that, if it occurs, is unknown. So if you had to pay all of your department heads 6 months at one time because you wanted to clean house, has anybody quantified that? I don't know.
Well, I think that's what we're here and elected to watch for and protect from. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Rizzi.
So I have questions for Chief Collins. My first question is, how many officers do you have under you, including lieutenant sergeants, et cetera?
15 sworn law enforcement employees plus civilian staff,
Okay, so 15 plus.
yes.
Some may consider that in the private sector a small business. Of course, we're in government, so not the same, but the point I'm making is essentially you are an executive. I would not say a CEO, but almost to that caliber, but you're an executive. The next question I have for you is how many times have you stood in to be the interim city manager in the last 2 years?
2 or 3, maybe 3.
I think it's 3. So what I'm getting at here is that we have an executive who has gone above and beyond, who has stepped in without additional pay until this last time, because this is the 3rd time, who's done it without complaining, and who has served our city for, how many years have you been here, Chief?
Almost 19.
19 years. So what I see is some very unique circumstances, not something that certainly could be called as a precedent. Now, I wrote down the word precedent, and I hear of a slippery slope. Now, I don't think I buy the argument that this would be a precedent when we're dealing with a very unique circumstance, because ultimately it is up to council. It is up to us. If a department head wants to ask for something, we would have the authority to say yes or no. So the example of 2025, we would determine if that's going to be even a feasible scenario. And in the case for tonight, I'm going with what's before us, not hypotheticals, precedents, examples. So with that being said, I don't think it's unreasonable for an executive in a company to ask for some sort of contract to protect himself. I'm surprised you haven't done it sooner, quite frankly. So for us to deny this to you, I think is just cold, frankly speaking. So this will have my support tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add a couple comments also. Clearly, this is an at-will contract. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This is an at-will contract. That's not even an issue to argue about. And clearly, the attorney has addressed the issue that the only trigger in here really is the payment of severance. And we pay a severance to the city manager. So to say that this contract is setting precedent, I think ignores the fact that your city manager contracts have a severance clause built into them for a reason. I made some phone calls, did some research, and it is not uncommon for cities to have their chief of police on a chief of police contract. Do you know of any? I mean, I know who I talk to, but...
Well, 3 immediately come to mind, and they're right in this area. That would be Wolverine Lake, Walled Lake, and Wixom.
Okay. So there is this desire when you have a community like South Lyon that has the track record of being a very safe town, is that this is an executive that is bringing an image to the city that I believe needs a little bit of contractual protection. And so if this means that all he's asking for is severance, and that keeps him here, or it fends off somebody from inappropriately terminating him, then I don't have a problem with this at all. Other cities are doing this. Why South Lyon isn't doing this, I don't know. I'm shocked that we didn't have this kind of contract in place. And I think also the cost of business is what it is. You know, if you're not going to pay your executives and give them a good benefit program, you're going to get what you get. So the cost of business is, if you're going to be cheap about it, then you're just not going to get real good talent. But if you really care about developing really strong management in your city, then give them some benefits that makes them competitive with other communities. Additionally, you did say that you oversee 15 people. Someone like you is going to be hard to replace on a moment's notice. So I think the incentive to keep you here as long as we can, I think it's all in our personal advantage to do it. Last, I think that when you're dealing with chiefs of police, as one officer told me that I spoke to about this, these are the most political positions that a city can have. These are highly politicized positions. These are the positions that when there is a change whether it's a city manager or a mayor like in Detroit or whatever, these are the first positions that are looked at and are changed. So I believe that that comment from that officer was true, and I think that it probably has a bit of merit here in this city, is that this is a politically charged position. At any time, something could happen, and the winds could blow a different way, and on Friday, you could be out of a job. That's not the kind of protection I want to give a chief of police that is doing an incredible job in the city. So I'm in favor of it, so. The only question I did have is that on the disability section, number 12, section 12, you have down 90 days. And you didn't have that in the city manager's contract.
Well, what I was trying to do was split the difference. You have, essentially, you're splitting the 6-month into a 90-day window. If he's disabled after 90 days, he's gotten 90 days of pay, and you can terminate him without severance.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the city manager's contract doesn't have a 90-day period for
It was designed to try and address the chief's request for protection. That can certainly be changed or eliminated.
Well, no, I mean, this clearly runs to the city's advantage. And that's clearly an advantage for the city.
Well, I'm not sure. I think it works both ways. I mean, it certainly provides a time period by which the chief will continue to receive employment even though he's not performing the job. Because he's on disability, right? So it's a period of time that he's essentially, by contract, going to receive pay without being terminated. There's a number of these terms in here that I think the city could weigh in on. I've tried to identify them. Also, with respect to the severance, I did include, one of the goals through the collective bargaining agreements has been to eliminate the spikes at the end of employment for purposes of MERS and the FAC. So we've tried to, so this language would eliminate the severance from the MERS calculation of FAC in an attempt to try and keep the spike down.
John? I still think that we should enjoy the existing situation we've got. We've got a strong city manager government, and to disable the ability for them to determine the path and who is leading the ship, I think, is a disservice to them, and it creates a difficult management circumstance for people to understand exactly where authority lies. Lloyd, you had suggested that the onset of this was because of your relationship with the existing city manager. Isn't that correct?
That's a large part of it. I mean, that's not something that I would like to go into in a public setting.
But that's what you said at our last meeting.
But that's true.
Yes. I won't be able to vote for this, but I would suggest that if this will be entertained, I would like us to, at the very least, consider the idea that there's a sunset in the event that the existing city manager were to no longer be in the position of authority here, that this contract would sunset as of that date, because that risk no longer would exist for you. I would also like to find in 11, the severance thing, simple things like the car allowance and things like that should end up being things that are determined, not just a term. I mean, there should actually be some quantifiable financial impact about some of these things being triggered. We should know exactly what's going to be the cost to end up having this be implemented. So I actually think that it's unfortunate, and as a matter of fact, I don't think that this is necessarily across the board a threat for other department heads. And I mean, we have some really, really talented people, but one of the benefits of Lloyd's position is that it's demonstrable the the community enjoys the, what is it, fourth safest middle-sized city in the state or something, as a pretty direct result of the way that the PD has been run over the last 19 years. A lot of other department heads certainly wouldn't end up having the same leverage to be able to say, you're at risk of, losing this valuable, some would have an argument, but it wouldn't be a universal tool that everybody could end up saying as a department head that if I go, things will unwind. So, as I said, though, I certainly won't be able to support this. And it's certainly not anything to do with you. This is simply philosophical. This isn't the way that I think that the city should be run.
I do understand that, and no decision is going to be taken personally.
thank you.
Whichever way it goes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I will make the motion to approve the police chief's contract employment agreement before us tonight. I don't know if there's anything I need to add to that in addition. Is there a second?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Oh, second?
And I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Any further discussion? I'm not going to support the contract, and I know the chief knows that this is not a personal matter. I just think this is a bad policy decision for the city. I'm sorry, I can't support it.
I also will not be supporting this. I prefer that we looked at other options. If protection is the issue, I think, as Harvey pointed out earlier, there's other options that we could explore that have not been explored. I'm concerned about what we're entering into today. If this happens, if this passes, then we are setting, and I know people disagree with me, but this is a precedent. This will be the first time it's done, and you have Mr. Martin that runs 2 departments. Why wouldn't he want to contract with the city? I mean, you look at his position is just as important as the chief's because he's running 2 departments. He oversees employees in both departments, and he's on call just like the chief 24/7. So why wouldn't he want to contract? This is what we're starting, and that's my concern. I wish we would look at other options before we went this route. Thank you.
That's still available too, so, consider that in your vote.
I'm voting yes on this. I don't see that South Lyon is doing anything any different than other cities are doing, and obviously they have the foresight and the managerial sophistication to provide a certain level of protection to their higher executives. And I just think it's the modern way of doing business is that you provide your top executives with a little bit of assurance. The only assurance here is basically a severance. Other than that, I just think that the city needs to move forward a little bit with more contemporary practices in securing managerial talent. So I'm voting yes.
Yeah. Oh, also. Oh, yeah, but we're still in discussion, right? Yeah, I was going to say along those lines. If Bob wants to ask for a contract, have at it. You're like Mike said, you're just as important as Chief Collins. So bring it before us. That's okay. And yeah, one of the things that our city struggles with, in my opinion, is that we're stuck in kind of our old ways of always doing things and saying that we've done things for so many years, and to step outside of that comfort really speaks to a larger issue that we have. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that hopefully this passes. If not, then you know where I stand. Thank you.
I have a quick question for Tim. How long do you think it would take to explore other options if we were to look into Harvey's suggestion about the personnel file or customers?
Well, that's a difficult question to ask without knowing what the council's goal would be in looking at those options. If it's to provide an additional layer of procedures to protect the chief from an ill-advised termination, that might be, I mean, there is a grievance process currently in the personnel manual, but it stops at the city manager. And you need to be careful of the charter provision that provides the administrative authority to the chief executive, or chief administrator, sorry, which is the city manager in this community. So I haven't looked at that issue. It is an intriguing possibility, but I think just off the cuff, it would be really utilizing a procedure to protect against an ill-advised decision.
Thank you. I understand that. My only concern with, I thought the contract was very well done, but the impact of it is what concerns me. So I would not like to act hasty and would like to explore other options as well. So if, I just was wondering a time frame wise how that would be. I know we need to give you more direction in that sense, but that's what, I just don't want to jump into something that's going to hurt us in the long run.
Mr. Mayor and Council, if I can add, the revision to the personnel manual has been a longstanding item on a to-do list that was initially, we obtained authorization to do that with funding that has been since pulled back under different circumstances. If we want to, the difficulty in dealing with it through the personnel manual is that it applies to all employees. And it may not be, we would want to be looking at whether this particular issue can be done in isolation through a new addendum policy or a different, just a portion of the personnel manual, or whether it really should be included in a much broader revision of that personnel manual.
Along that same vein, are there any other options aside from that?
I'd have to look into it.
Okay. Thank you.
I think the one issue that I don't think that I've had the opportunity to explore, as I indicated, is the term aspect of a contract. And I only say that, I haven't really explored it, but the idea of needing protection could be put into a term. It's not unusual to see employment contracts have a performance review or a scalability of severance based on time served. There's other factors and moving parts that might make this contract more palatable or receive different consideration by council.
Well, also, this contract is backdated to June 28th. So it's not time sensitive. So we have time to explore other options. And I think that's, I mean, Chief, you know how I feel about your work. I think you're phenomenal at everything you do. But I would vote no on this contract just to be erring on the side of caution, to explore other options and take that time.
So it wouldn't be backdated. It would only become effective upon execution by both parties. It would not be backdated. It would move forward. I just picked July 31 as I think as a start date, or August 1.
Okay.
It wouldn't be retroactive.
Okay.
But it would not be backdated. There wouldn't be a reason to make it go back in time.
Okay, I thought this was going to take place as of the date that Lynn Ladner officially said that she was going on leave.
That I believe you're referring to the acting city manager authorization.
Okay. So does
So
that
this
have...
would be a police chief contract that would start from whenever it's executed,
Whenever it's time.
if it were to be
So
executed.
it is time sensitive? Or is it not?
Well, it's
According to the
probably
chief,
more
there
to
is.
Lloyd than to us, so.
Okay.
Tim, in your legal opinion, back when we started this discussion, you said we're not violating the city charter if we were to approve this contract.
It's written as an at-will contract, so the answer to your question is yes. It's an at-will contract. It does not violate the charter and the authority that is placed with the chief administrative officer. It merely provides, and that really, in speaking with Lloyd last week, while trying to restate a lot of his existing employment terms, it really boils down to under what circumstances would the chief of police be entitled to severance in the event of a termination? And the severance is only if the city does the termination, and it's only if you don't have with cause, and if he wants to leave on his own terms, you're not obligated. The disability is a little bit more in that gray area, but the 90 days seems to kind of split that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask one more thing that's sort of an expansion on what had been talked about? Is there a vehicle that wouldn't be in violation of the charter that could allow, say, city council to actually be the appellate board on a review of the city manager's termination of somebody?
I don't know. I don't know without looking at it. That would require having some knowledge of what exactly that procedure is, and then making an evaluation of whether it affects the authority that's granted under the charter.
Mm-hmm.
There is in this document, there's a procedure that that the city and the chief would have to go through for determining whether something is just cause and making it effective just cause. But that doesn't affect the at-will component of the contract. To change that aspect of it, I just don't know without getting more detail and getting into it.
I could see where that would be a problem, where city council was acting as the appellate form. Clearly, I don't think city council wants to get into the facts and the circumstances as to why somebody was terminated, because then I think, I've said this before, that pulls you into the daisy chain, and probably if there's going to be subsequent litigation, it would pull in city council members into that litigation, because now you're gaining knowledge and maybe you're taking sides rather than evaluating based on the facts. So if you have a city manager that, gets along with everybody on city council, he or she's going to get what they want, and that may or may not be legally sufficient for a termination. And that's where your problem's going to be on the appellate side.
Mr. Mayor, it does affect, you can't take that authority away without modifying your charter. You don't want to violate the charter by placing the ultimate authority for a termination to be placed with the council. That seems to be just in that basic scenario laid out, that seems like it would bring a big question about whether you're contradicting the charter authority.
Is there a vehicle that would be a board that could be brought together outside of city council? Some kind of
I think you have the same issue. I guess maybe this issue highlights that you have to be comfortable and trust your city manager to make the correct and proper and appropriate personnel decisions.
Mm-hmm. Well, just the long and the short of it is, in the event that council deemed that it was an inappropriate termination of virtually anybody, we have the ability to terminate the city manager. So, that is our charge. So I guess ultimately it could end up turning into that. So,
Any other discussion? Okay, Lisa.
Tibble?
no.
Sedakis?
No.
Frizzy?
Yes.
Gallus?
Yes.
Waddell?
No.
Kramer?
No.
Kurzweil?
Yes.
Sorry, Chief.
It doesn't pass. Okay, old business number 2, establish pay raises for non-union employees and department heads.
Mr. Mayor, this was on the agenda at a prior meeting, and council had requested additional information. That information is attached for council's consideration.
Jen? I think that pretty much the spreadsheet that had been provided to us, if you kind of go through everything save for the new POAM raise cycle in the last 3 years has been 2%. I'm comfortable myself actually moving in that direction, just to apply the 2% increase.
Anything else?
Well, all right, I'm going to make a motion that we support or that we authorize a pay increase of 2% to non-union employees and 2% for department heads effective today's date, 25th.
A motion?
I'm not seconding, I'm waiting for,
All in favor?
wait, there's no second to that.
No, no
We don't
second.
have a second.
No second. Okay.
No second, so it fails. All right.
What's your
I was going to suggest a 3%. The POAM is going to have a 3% raise. That's clearly our largest employee group. The POLC are still in negotiations. It will likely not be less than 3%. That's our largest employee group altogether. I don't think we should do a 2% for the rest of our employees with the evidence before us that more than likely a majority of our employees will receive 3% minimum. So I would make a motion then that we authorize a 3% raise for non-union employees and 3% raise for department heads effective, what's tomorrow?
26.
Next pay period of 2016.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes. Okay, Bob, consider purchase of the single Elgin Pelican street sweeper.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may recall, this was brought to the council at the last council meeting of July 11, 2016, and at the time there was a suggestion that I review with the city attorney the financial arrangements with the company we're purchasing this from. That has been done. Those concerns have been put aside or answered. This way we're going to purchase is exactly the same way as I purchased the last front-end loader for the city on a 5-year note. And at that time, that was in the water department. Now, mind you, that's an enterprise fund. I paid that front-end loader off 2 years early because I generate the funds within the enterprise fund. This is coming out of general fund. So with that said, there will be no payment at all this fiscal year. The first payment will be of $43,042 in fiscal year 17-18, which makes the first payment about a year right now. I'm sorry, year in August, okay? And this is a really nice piece of equipment. They've saved one for us, and if this gets passed tonight, I wouldn't be surprised you'll see it on the road here by Monday.
Harvey? I make the motion, we approve the purchase of an Elgin Pelican single street sweeper from Bell Equipment Company for the price of $197,406.30.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Look for clean streets.
Ball fields.
Number 3, we're going to do ball fields, right?
Yeah.
Parks.
Yeah. Appointments.
So all it needs is a second.
So we have an appointment for Linda Robinson to the Cultural Arts Commission.
I'll second.
Mr.
the
Mayor,
appointment.
Ms. Robinson is here.
Discussion?
Linda,
Nice
what,
appointment.
Yeah.
I
to come
seconded
up
the
and,
appointment.
and tell us a little bit about your credentials,
Oh,
what you've done.
I'm Linda Robinson. I live in the city of South Lyon in Colonial Acres. I am a senior citizen, and my parents moved to South Lyon in 1992. Right now, I'm a primary caregiver for my father and my baby brother who has Alzheimer's. I've been an artist all of my life. I have worked in marketing and advertising as a paid person. I've been self-employed since early 2000s, sometimes paid, sometimes not. But art has always been a part of my life. I love South Lyon. I love art, and the Cultural Arts Commission is a perfect combination for me. I'm delighted to be considered at all and thrilled to be here, and I want to thank everybody for this opportunity. Should it happen, I'm not official yet, but
Close.
What's your medium? What do you?
right now I'm in watercolor. I just started taking classes 3 years ago. I spent most of the last 20 years as a textbook illustrator when that's all digital. So I thought I'd try getting back into actual art, and I had to start using my opposite hand because digital is very technical. Textbook illustration is technical, so I took up watercolor, and I love it. It turns out we're a match made in artistic heaven. So right now my medium is watercolor.
Did you come from the Fine Arts, the Fine Arts Society? You have an excellent reputation, and I think I've seen some of your work.
Thank you.
I think I've seen some of your work over at the library.
Yes?
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
you're the same Linda Robinson, okay.
And Mr. Mayor is holding up a piece that I painted of my favorite building in South Lyon.
Totally restored.
It's totally restored. It is brought back to vibrant life. I also brought it back to life in a novel I wrote. It's featured as a magical reality player. My mom loved it. She would shop there. So that's part of my mission, is to see that particular building and all of downtown be vibrant with arts and creativity.
Thank you.
And I've donated this piece, that's a print, the only one in existence, to the city. It's for the city. The original is going to be rotating, I hope, in an ongoing program that might happen with arts rotation at city businesses. Milford is just starting one, and I think it's a beautiful idea.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson, I just want to say thank you for stepping up. You
Well,
can
thanks
tell
very much.
you have a
I'm just
passion.
thrilled.
I remember you ran for city council in
I
2011.
did, yeah, I did. And
I
I
first
didn't
got
actually
on,
come
so-
in last, which was very exciting.
But it shows your passion and your drive that you ran in 2011 and still here today helping out. And
Absolutely.
we need people like you have the mindset of wanting to bring culture and art to the city and really beautifying it. So
Thanks
wish you
very
were sitting up
much.
here today.
Oh, no, I'm happy where I am. It was meant to be. Meant
you.
to be, I think. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'd like to make a motion.
It's already made.
It's already on the floor.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
It's his appointment.
It's already supported.
Maggie,
Okay,
it's
okay.
his appointment. All it requires from us is a second.
Yeah, is a second. Okay, got it. Well, I'm voting for you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for the art. You did this with your opposite hand, too, you're saying?
No, that was just to change my brain.
It's very good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have resignation appointment, Parks and Recreation Committee.
The resignation, Mr. Mayor, is Mike Orlando, has served for many years, has had to resign due to other obligations, and we're also requesting an appointment of Jody Movens, and assuming council makes that appointment, there will still be one remaining vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Is Jody here?
No.
No.
Well, I'll move then that we accept the resignation of Mike Orlando with his thanks, or with our thanks, and move for the appointment of Jody Movens to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Support?
All in favor?
Discussion? Discussion? The other thing I wanted to ask, this resignation was dated May 10th. Did it take 90 days for a resignation to get here before council?
It did. I can't attest to what happened to it prior to my being appointed interim manager, but yes, it did.
I mean, 90 days for a resignation to get up here?
I said, yeah.
Well, his resignation is dated May 10th, and we're just now getting the resignation?
He said yes.
You made your point.
Well, not exactly the way I would be doing business, but I think if Mary Barra handed in her resignation, they wouldn't be waiting 90 days to give it to the shareholders. It is what it is. It's South Lyon.
We have a motion, we have a second.
No, you got to
No.
vote on it.
You did have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I thought we already did it. Against. Welcome, Jody. I know you're not here.
And thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Orlando. So number 3 now, since it was removed earlier, and number 10 was moved to number 3, so consider approval of the ball field memorial. Joe?
Yeah, it's just a discussion item
Right,
at this
discussion.
point.
Yes.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council and department heads. I wanted to provide an update on this, what was a tragic, still is a tragic situation that has, hopefully we can bring some light to. And just wanted to give an update, how it came to be, current status, and what I see as the status going forward. So as we all know, there was a tragedy of a little girl who passed away, Maddie Doty, in her sleep. It was very tragic. Sorry, excuse me. But anyhow, the community rallied together, and we saw the yellow ribbons. They're still up today. The Facebook posts, the family's get so much support, and it's really drawn the community together. And I was approached by Mr. Michael Moore. He's in attendance right now, and he's been helping with this program. And he asked me if there was something that we could do to try and get this rolling. He was in contact with family and friends, and so I said, yeah, certainly, of course. I mean, when you have something like this that happens, it's only right to explore it and do what's right. So I brought this before council on last council meeting, June 27th, and I laid out how I'd like to have the field, one of the fields in McCaddy Park, dedicated in her honor, and also pass a resolution dedicating it as such. So council gave their blessing, and then since then, Mr. Moore and I, we've been in very close contact. We've been in close contact with the family. We met with the family, and we met with Mr. and Mrs. Doty, and it was amazing to see her gratitude. And she was talking about how her family's always been involved in in baseball and softball. She has multiple children, and she's coached there. I believe she's ref there. She's cleaned up the grounds, and she really felt like that was a part of her life and part of the junior league and part of the identity of the junior league, just because her family's been so involved. And then she told me about how the Witches Hat Depot and where they used to have Girl Scouts, and I wasn't going to go into all these details, but I think it's relevant just to understand how this really applies and how this applies to her. It was such a special place for them with the Girl Scouts, and then playing in the playground. And it kind of hit me. This is very specific to this girl, but it also speaks to all the children in our community that pass, because I have similar stories. I'm sure all of us do, where we have memories of taking our children to McCaddy Park and on the playground. And so I spoke to a couple people. I spoke to Mr. Wilhelm, and I wanted to know if there was any legal concerns with naming a field. And our city attorney, Mr. Wilhelm, told me that he does not see any. because it's simply symbolic. There's not a transfer of ownership, so it'd just be a name change. I've also spoke to the Junior League, and I was told by board members of the Junior League that they're 100% on board, and they would be willing to contribute financially to the project. So the idea is not to cost the city anything. And if the Junior League couldn't cover all the funds, I would work with Mr. Moore and the family and whoever, the community, to help fundraise for this. So my goal is to have the city not have a financial impact. So the Junior League's on board. Then I also spoke to the Parks, sent some communications to the Parks and Recs Commission. And so really here, the next steps, in my opinion, is Mr. Moore has been meeting with a sculpture artist to design a plaque, and the parents expressed an interest in putting in some benches and maybe some improvements. So as next steps, I'm going to be meeting with the Parks and Rec on August 24th, and I'd like to approach this in two different fashions. The first fashion is the symbolic dedication from the city's side, which I'm going to be meeting with the family on this Wednesday. They already have sample language of a resolution that we've passed. Jeffrey Potter and Rod Cook, we've passed we named the rail trail in their honor. They have that language. We're going to be working on finalizing the resolution language, and I'm going to bring that before council next council meeting, which would be August 8th. Then my next plan of attack would be any ball field improvements or technical designs, such as a plaque and dimensions, specifications. I would want to get the blessing of Parks and Rec, because I certainly want them to be have their approval. So first step is passing the resolution next meeting, and then bringing everything to Parks and Rec, preliminary designs or some sort of a plan on August 24th. And then from there, it could be, we could work with Parks and Rec to get those improvements made. And then sometime after school starts, then have an official dedication where this community will be involved, and whoever, John, if you want to make the dedication, or who knows, pastor, somebody at Junior League, minister, priest, somebody could, whoever they want, or whoever we feel is appropriate to make that dedication. So, so excuse me for if I'm getting emotional over this, but I just wanted to bring council up to the loop and the public of where we're at with this, and see if there's any questions and kind of state my intentions. And Mr. Moore is here because he has more of the specifics of sculptures and plaques and that sort of thing. So that was all I had right now. Thank you.
I'd like to see the parks get involved in this prior to any kind of a official action, whether it's just ceremonial or otherwise. I mean, they're the ones that have oversight on our parks. I think that they should be instrumental in any kind of decisions that are made regarding parks. So,
well, either way, I'm going to be bringing it before council. So it'll be up to council.
They should sanction it prior to your.
That'll be up to council to decide how we want to proceed.
I'm 100% on board with this idea. My only question I missed, because I know you spoke with multiple people, did you say you spoke with Parks and Rec?
I spoke to several on the phone. Alex, Rick, Erica, I stopped by your house twice. Must have missed you. And Diane, I don't have your phone number, but I did speak to Parks and Rec, and I communicated by email as well, yes. And I will be meeting with them again on August 24th.
Well, Erica characterized the letter a little bit different than what you're laying out there, but.
That's fine.
I mean, I interpret it as to mean that they were on board with it, but it's just the process and the procedures that we were going, our route that we were taking.
Ask prior to actually making the official notification, I think, is kind of where they were coming from.
I think.
Yeah. Well, after sitting with those parents, and I did speak to council, as we recall, and everybody said, and I have the quotes where we said absolutely no problem. And when I specifically asked if we could do a resolution, and now I don't know what I'm hearing tonight, but I asked approval, and I don't know what else to say. I mean,
well,
I'm meeting with Parks and Rec, and it will be on the next agenda. So
I would just like to see, like, to echo what Glenn said and Mary, I would like to see what the Parks and Rec Commission has to say about it. Plus, I'd like to see some official notification from the Junior League that they're on board with this. I think
That should be easy, no problem.
I think we're bypassing some steps here. I mean, we have a Parks and Rec Commission that will look into this. We have the Junior League that I would like to make sure that they're on board with this and that we have a unified front going into this rather than just having us make the decision, bypassing Parks and Rec and I appreciate all your efforts on this, Joe, but I would just like to see more official notification from the Junior League as well.
I can get that. That shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, Council, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. This isn't the comment, so I might go a little bit longer than 6 minutes. My name's Carl Richards. I'm in favor of memorializing someone who's had a tragic death in our community. But there's some facts I thought I might bring up to you that you may not already know. There are 2 plaques right now that are on the backstop at that ball field you're talking about, already dedicating the field, and this is all under SLERA, okay, administration, saying McCaddy Park East Junior League field, okay? Now there's already something there, okay? I'm just letting you know that, okay? I'm not speaking for the Historical Society, but as a member that's involved with things, we have a bench over there in the historical, in front of the rock, okay? It's a new addition. The bench has been there for some time. And the name of the lady that's on it, nobody ever knew her. Nobody knows who she was. It was all paid for without city money, okay? Down at the Blue Star Memorial down there, there's another one. And some group approached us, and they wanted to put another one in, another bench in there with a memorial. There's also some trees that have been made notice of over the years here, most recently with former Mayor Wallace's life-saving experience, where a marker is on dedicating this tree to the memory of so-and-so that is of note. And it's just my feeling that if you're going to memorialize a tragic death, okay, something more fitting, like a memorial wall or something, not like the Vietnam, but something, a different type of thing, is more lasting than the recognition of a ball field, okay? Not only for this poor person that passed away in their sleep, as I understand it, but we've had children that died tragic deaths 55, 60 years ago. Those 5 kids that were killed on a railroad track crossing back somewhere in 66 or something like that. Children, the baby that was murdered by accident here a number of years ago, about 15 years ago. I'm just letting you know these are facts in our community, okay? And I don't particularly think dedicating a ball field is the right way to go in precedent setting, as Mike would say, way to make a memorial situation, because we have other memorials scattered around, and there's no book anywhere in this town that dedicates this plaque or this correlation. You'd walk around, you look at them. There's one over under the tree in front of the old city hall, which is the police administration office. There's one there. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up to your attention to future consideration here, okay? Thank you.
I grew up in Redford, very high Parks and Rec community for a very, very long time, and we had a couple of students, kids that I went to school with that had passed away, and they named ball fields after them. And you think about them as you get older. You don't think about them when you're as a kid. And when you have kids, you think very strongly about these things, and we're all very lucky that we don't have to go through what this family's having to go through right now. But when you're so strong in a community involved in sports, Parks and Rec, it's that's a community by itself. And I think it's a huge recognition in order to do something like that, and I'm in favor of it. I'd like to see everybody on board. I know red tape gets involved in everything, but you want to make sure everything's done right. So nothing gets screwed up in the process so it can take place, because it is for a great, great cause. And I think naming a ball field or a football field or a track or whatever for a certain student or somebody that had a tragic loss is good for the community to also remember, and also remember what it is to be a parent. You know, I mean, I get what you're saying. So my son was hit by a car years ago here in South Lyon, and I was lucky. So anytime things like this I hear about them, I get a little mushy myself, because I count my blessings. So I don't want to see red tape get in the way of ruining something that means so much to so many families. And it would mean something to somebody else's family if they had the same kind of loss. So I think it makes a big difference. I disagree with the naming of a ballpark, Carl. I think when you're involved in sports, as long as you are for years and years and years, to be honored on a baseball field or a bench or something, you'll go back to that and you'll look at it years later and realize what it means now. Back when it got put there, you maybe didn't. You know, and I go back to where I grew up and I see a couple of them, and it means a lot to me because one of them was a coach of mine. Didn't think about him until I got older and realized how much of an impact he was on me, you know, growing up. So having him have a field named after him was pretty special. And I don't remember a whole lot of red tape messing up that when I was a kid. I wasn't paying attention, I'm sure. But I don't remember a whole lot of opposition or anybody getting in the way of all the red tape and all the things that need to happen to make things perfect. So I just like to see us all talk, Parks and Rec, the league, you know, and let's get this thing going and do it the right way so there's no questions.
So good evening. My name is Michael Moore. To address Mr. Kramer's concerns, as Joe said, Mr. Kramer, we're not seeking any funds from the city. The Junior League itself has already stepped in and said, "Don't worry about the money. Don't even worry about a budget. We're taking care of this." So there's 6 teams or 6 organizations. One of them being South Lyon Little League, some softball teams, some hockey teams that have already stepped up and donated between $500 and $1,000. So we expect that'll pay for that. We've also approached them that the field is named McCaddy Park Field. I think it's East, and we've said that this is what we'd like to name it. The Matty Doty Park at McCaddy, or Matty Doty Field at McCaddy Park. They're completely on board with that as well. I want to apologize because I think Joe's taking a little heat for this. I watched the council meeting that Joe presented this idea, and it seemed to me, if I'm wrong, that every single one of you were on board, and the mayor made the suggestion that we cut through the red tape, not go through the schools, which I originally was going to do. We go right from McCaddy Park. So my apologies. I did put the announcement out on South Lyon, what's happening now, and I can tell you that I received over 540 likes and numerous comments. That's what drove me to take the idea, contact Joe, and run with it. So I guess what I would say, as far as I've heard the comments of, I hate to go to this, but I've heard the comments of a lot of kids die, and what are we going to do? Name everything after them? What I would say is, please don't penalize us because we saw an opportunity for the community to come together and help this family. As Joe stated, when we met with the family at Big B Coffee, probably 35 minutes of it, 20 of it was spent of them crying because they were so touched by what the city, what we were doing. I sent him a copy of the video of the city council, Joe talking how it seemed excited you guys were. They were just delighted that we were doing this. So please don't hold it against them. Please don't hold it against Joe. I made the announcement just because of what I saw in the video. It seemed, and again, I apologize for not going to the Park and Recs. We should have done that first. My first time into doing anything like this. So, I hope that they're on board. The family's on board. I've had the Junior League come forward. I've had a company in town here sketch out a sketch for us, completely complimentary. I have another gentleman who did the thing in the cemetery for the little boy that passed away in the wheelchair. He stepped forward. He wants to do something with some of his artwork for it as well. It's not going to be this big, huge thing. It's going to be just a bench with her nickname on it, and then like a plaque, and then some little things that he's going to do if we're able to move forward with this. So I appreciate his being on board, and I look forward to working with the council to make this happen.
Thank you.
Park and Recs are here tonight. Did anybody come to Park and Recs, as you recall, when Paul Baker Park was named? I don't recall. Yeah, I don't recall. What about the tree that was just planted in Paul Baker Park? Anybody come to you to plant a tree and put a plaque up in there? Okay. I mean, I can appreciate the fact, to go to Parks and Recs, and that's probably a step that should be taken at some point in the process. I don't know to what extent Park and Recs needs to put their final approval on it, because these are going to be my comments. I had an opportunity to, I've spent a lot of my life in the nonprofit world, so I've done a lot of things and worked for a lot of organizations that benefited a lot of people. And I had an opportunity this weekend to speak with Brian Mackey, who is just an incredible individual. You guys on the Junior League, I'm telling you, I can't tell you the people that I know that have got kids that are enrolled in the Junior League. They have nothing but incredible comments to say about the leadership in the Junior League, the commitment of the parents in the Junior League, their compassion for children. I also learned this weekend that the Junior League, if there's a kid that for some reason is economically challenged, the Junior League steps in and provides equipment and assists that family to make sure that that boy or girl gets to play. In the past, we have not been able to develop these fields. I mean, I can remember sitting on the Park and Rec Commission, and we couldn't get anything developed. Nothing. And I don't know if it was political will that refused to allocate the money or the money wasn't there. But I can remember doing the walkthroughs spring after spring and looking at those ball fields in the most horrible condition I've ever seen in my life. And then comes the Junior League. And if the city is going to provide recreational opportunities on a sophisticated level with good fields, then they need to develop a partnership with these organizations. And the Junior League has contributed thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to improvements to ball fields in this city. And this city hasn't had to dig in their coffers. So what does this city want? You have an organization with a child that had involvement in the Junior League, as I understand it. Yeah, it's not like this young girl came from left field. She was active, or her parents were active in the Junior League. And this organization is contributing thousands of parent hours in terms of keeping those fields, and they are taking money, and they are keeping our fields improved. And we're sitting here saying, oh my gosh, let's think about naming this field. If this city's culture is going to change, I will say it again. I said it last time we were here. I said it all during the campaign. You have to change. You have to give. This organization has given so much, and they're just asking to have a field named in memory of one of their members. That's it. So for Parks and Recs, you may want to take a look at it, whatever. I'm just going to advocate and say, look at what this organization is doing to help improve the Parks and Recs in this community, where this city hasn't done it in decades. And I know, because I was there and I saw how lousy those fields were until this organization stepped up to the plate, literally, and started helping this city. You got to give. You have to give. So make your review. I would advocate. Make your review simple. Allow them the freedom to do what they need to do and step out of the way. Because this organization is maintaining those fields. That's my understanding. So I spent about 45 minutes with Brian Mackey yesterday, and I was shocked at what this organization does for the city. And not one of these parents are asking for a dime, except they have a ball field named after one of the members.
Mike?
Apparently, there's some confusion. I'm not against this. I just want to see something from the junior league, and I just want to make sure our Parks and Rec knows about this. That's all. And it's very simple, and we do have a partnership with the junior league. I am friends with a lot of their board members. All I'm asking is that we get them on board officially, and then it's no problem. That's it. That's it.
I can forward you an email tomorrow morning for you from them, letting us know what they'll be contributing.
And the only reason I want the Parks and Rec involved is just so we know the scope of what you plan on doing. That's it. That's it.
Mike, if I could clarify, though,
They're
we
on
we
board.
have an opportunity, and
They're on board.
we do have an opportunity to do something good. I mean, we sit up here and we fight, and, you know, I'll admit, I'm part of it too, fighting with everybody, and it's not right, and whatever, but when it comes down to lives and memorials, we can set all that aside and we can do something good. And if we can't agree that this is good, then I don't even know why we're here tonight, all of us. And I don't think I'm not accusing you. I'm not, Mike, I'm not saying to you. I'm just saying in general. And I agree. So we'll get the email from Junior League, but so to clarify though, I do plan on bringing a resolution before council, next council meeting. And then Parks and Rec, certainly, I want them to have their stamp and their blessing on any ball fields improvements. But when it comes time for an actual resolution that we can do, it's purely symbolic. And that's, as a board, we can stand united and we can pass this resolution next meeting, and there does not have to be controversy.
I don't think there's controversy now.
There hadn't been, actually.
No,
We were simply asking that you go through the proper channels.
That's it.
Give Parks and Rec their opportunity to either bless it or make suggestions to it.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's unanimous across the board that everyone's in favor of this idea. It's a fantastic idea, and it's only proper. So, like you had just said just a second ago, you took the words right out of my mouth, Glenn. Procedurally, I think there's just steps you need to take to solidify this and make it, have it done properly. But don't misconstrue the situation, guys. Everyone's on board.
Yeah.
Come on up here, Diane.
Diane Beagle, 1089 Chestnut Lane, Secretary, Southline Parks and Rec Commission. We are not opposed to this idea. We are questioning the procedure, and other activities that are done in the park come through Parks and Rec Commission. All the Eagle Scout projects that are done in the park, and we've had numerous projects. They all come to the Parks and Rec Commission first, present their ideas. Sometimes we come up with things that they haven't thought about, ramifications of a project. The discussion takes place, we work it all out, and it moves from there. Same thing with, we just did a project with volunteers from the Southline Library, the Little Free Library. There's a group of girls who are building a Little Free Library stand in the park. Same thing, they came to Parks and Rec first with the idea. Again, we thought of some things that they needed to address that they didn't think about. It's another avenue for input to make sure that a project is done correctly and legally with regard to building codes and that kind of thing in the park, and it's the preliminary step. Why have a Parks and Rec Commission if you aren't going to use them? As for the ball fields in Marquette Park, that was a partnership between Parks and Rec and Junior League. It wasn't all Junior League. We had many volunteer hours by Parks and Rec commissioners and Parks and Rec volunteers that helped make those fields get built. It wasn't totally Junior League. It was a partnership. And we would hope that anything else that's done in the parks would be a partnership with Parks and Rec Commission, not told to us after the fact. Again, if somebody plants a tree in a park and doesn't come to Parks and Rec first, just because they don't follow a procedure doesn't make it right for somebody else to not follow a procedure. We would hope that people would come to Parks and Rec first for everything, just so that, one, we know what's going on, one, we can offer our opinions and ideas that they might not have considered, and we get the partnership working in the right direction. Nobody from Parks and Rec is saying no to this idea. We're just saying, please, back up, slow down a little bit, let Parks and Rec get involved so that we can help you get it done. That's all we're asking.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, consider approval of Pumpkin Fest 2016 downtown road closures.
Hello again. Kathy Swan, President of Pumpkin Fest. I'm here for approval for the road closures for the Pumpkin Fest. A couple of new things that have happened since we put in the application. We've added some new additions to the festival, a pie eating contest, a dunk tank. The Great Pumpkin Contest is coming back.
Good.
A photo booth for the teens. So we're a karaoke contest for the teens. So we're adding some new, bringing back some of the old-fashioned things, but also engaging the teens. Due to that, we are asking for amendment? Some type of amendment to the road closure. We would like to extend our footprint and ask for Liberty, is it Liberty parking lot? Liberty parking lot, where the Rock is.
I think you're talking about the Rock lot, or the
Yeah.
Veterans, technically the Veterans Memorial lot.
Veterans, yes, where the Rock is. We're asking if the footprint can be extended to include that parking lot. It would not, no road closures on Liberty. It would just be that we would be putting the Great Pumpkin Contest and teen activities in that parking lot. So we would be losing 20 parking spots, but we would be gaining an area for the teens, where the teens can go. As far as the Great Pumpkin Contest, Diane from the Dollhouse is reached out, and she wants to be part of, she used to do it, and she's coming back to bring it back to the festival. So we thought that would be a great spot for the pumpkins.
How will that impact the timeline as far as closure of the parking lot?
Yeah, when do you need it?
Yeah. Will it be set up before the parade?
Yes.
It would, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and the parade would still turn where it normally does. The road's not closing. Actually, it's a good advertisement for that parking lot, because as people pass by, they'll see all the things for the teens that they might not have seen before. So, and it'll be great, the pumpkins along the edge, and then the dunk tank, which is being run by a Girl Scout troop, the photo booth, some type of mountain climbing thing or something for the teens.
In that same lot?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everything's going to be in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want the lot closed then at the same time you want the road closures?
Yes.
Meeting at 2 on Friday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Then I'll make the motion then that we approve the requested road closures from Friday, September 23rd, 2016, starting at 2 p.m. until Sunday, September 25th, 2015 at 8 p.m. and the closure of the Veterans Memorial parking lot for the same time period.
Second.
Discussion?
I'd like to ask a question. The Well Street parking lot, now last year you wanted that closed at 12 so you could get the band event thing going. Isn't that what happened last year?
Logistics.
Scott Black, 946 Westbrook. Friday, we're asking to close down, I may need Chief to remind me on this one, but we want to close down Wall Street earlier.
Earlier than 12?
Yes.
Okay.
Start at 7 o'clock, I believe, Chief, on
Yeah,
Friday.
it was pretty early in the morning.
Yeah, okay.
So that way we can get all the load in, load out with the tents, the trailers, the fencing,
Right.
chairs, and all that stuff. At noon, Wall Street would open back up, and the road closure would be started up.
Now, do you need an order for, I mean, that's our street, Well Street, so you can do that, can't you? I mean, we're talking about Oakland County for closing the roads.
I could do it, but I'm asking council to approve the closure of wells from 7 a.m. until
Okay,
noon.
because I didn't see that in the text. so-
Okay.
It's
until
the very
this time.
bottom line, be it further resolved.
Oh, yes, okay, right. All right, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
So
Thank
it's
you.
already in there?
I want to commend you for bringing in something for the teens. I'm not kidding you. You know, where I live, my subdivision, there's things for the little kids to do, but the parents are always looking for things for the teens to do, and I think that's been, something that people would like to see, that you broaden your base. And it's because when the parents go down there with the small kids to go into the jumpies or whatever, the bouncies, well, they're bringing their middle age and their teen kids with them, and there really isn't that much for those kids to do. So I got to commend you on the Great Pumpkin Contest, and I want to thank you, because I'm going to be talking about this maybe a little bit later, is how you are being inclusive with businesses. I'm going to talk about it in council comment about 501c3s and their ability to integrate businesses along with their success. And I think you've got a winner here, a dump tank. Who are you going to have sitting on the pad?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Girl Scout troop is soliciting teachers to get up in there and have teachers be in.
One thing maybe.
But maybe the mayor or someone else can be up there too.
I want to be on, put my name in.
Really, I mean, this could be really fun, and then maybe down the line you could actually get some celebrities in the Detroit area that could make a visit and do a nice draw. So I think you've got some great ideas here, and I want to commend you for bringing back some of the wholesomeness, I think, for the kids.
We always wanted to do that, but as you all know, we are landlocked to our footprint of our festival, so we make some adjustments one way, and we have to make adjustments the other way.
We're giving you more. And
Yes.
there's McCaddy Park. There's always McCaddy Park, at some point, because you will grow. So
grow, yeah, we grow.
So I wanted to say thank you as well. I think one of the things that got lost in the approval process was saying thank you to all the volunteers. I mean, I know you guys spend hours. I volunteer for a couple hours, and it's nothing compared to what you guys do, because you're planning this year-round. I heard a statement once that the day after Pumpkin Fest, maybe Chief Kennedy said it, as I recall, you guys start planning the next years. So,
Literally, we meet 2 weeks after the festival, and we start all over again.
So,
we rehash what happened, and we move forward.
And I think a big thank you is just
Thank you.
is well-deserved. So I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to commend one specific thing. Well, there's a lot of things, but one thing I think that was really impressive, and I don't know if it was Scott's idea or somebody else's, but bringing the air dogs is a huge hit.
Yeah, this is their third year.
Yeah.
Third year, so yes, we asked for them to come back, and they were wholeheartedly wanting to come back. They love South Lyon. They
And
love
the
the
kids,
people.
yeah, the kids' faces just to see it, it's amazing. So thank you for that. And then lastly, I thought of an idea, and I'm just curious if it's even been considered. I know that when they had the Lake Street Cruise in, they extend the road all the way down 10 Mile. Have you thought about expanding it farther?
That was another option that we discussed, but we decided to go with Veteran Park, the parking lot
Okay.
this year, and then we'll, we kind of, to be truthful, we lost some time here, so.
Understood.
We're under
Okay.
a time crunch now.
Well, I'm just glad that it's being resolved, and want to say thank you for coming before us.
Thank
and
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a support. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
No.
Save a lot of labor.
Yeah.
Call on the next item.
The Pumpkin Fest parade.
I thought we did them both.
No, just the road closures.
Okay. Consider approval of the Pumpkin Fest Parade downtown.
Good evening, Philip Wipert, 135 North Warren, and we're asking to do the exact same parade on the exact same parade route. And just getting back to the dunk tank, if the weather's like now, I expect everybody would sign up.
I'll be on. Don't worry about me.
But anyway, that's, we
Cold or
were going
hot?
to propose to do the parade the same manner we've done it the last several years. Start at Lion Trail, come down Pontiac Trail into the city, and at Liberty Street and disperse, so, and bring it around to Bartlett, so I think. So that's what we're asking. I
All
think
right.
it'll be the same logistics. We've talked to the police, we'll work with the fire chief, we'll line the route, every driveway, have it all closed, and get little citizen volunteers to block driveways, and should work out fine.
Well, I'll make the motion then that we approve the requested road closures for September 24th, 2016, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. for the Pumpkin Fest Parade.
Support. Favor.
Aye.
Thank you very much. With very good weather.
Okay, consider approval of acting city manager compensation for Bob Martin during the time that he assumed those duties.
I'll make the motion to approve payment of $734.89 to Robert Martin as compensation for serving as acting city manager for 9 days.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Discussion.
Oh, Christ.
What'd you say, Harvey?
Never mind.
You shouldn't take the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
All right,
little.
all right,
It's
go ahead,
offensive.
go ahead,
Okay.
Meg.
A little inappropriate, but anyway, the reason that I am bringing this up for discussion is because I had been looking at the city charter for several other issues on the succession planning and whatever. And I found this section here, 5.8, and obviously it didn't trigger with you because nobody's brought it up, and I just want to make sure I disclose it to city council so that there is no confusion about what is going on. Section 5.8 in the city charter says that the council shall not grant or authorize extra compensation to any city officer, elective or appointive, or to any employee, agent, or contractor after the service has been rendered or the contract entered into. So, as I read that, I said, well, this compensation thing came up, and I looked at it and I'm going to give my interpretation of this section, because I'd like to see Bob get this, but I think it's important for city council to understand that there is a charter issue, potentially, but I don't think it's fatal. It says that we shall not grant or authorize compensation, so we have some compensation, to any, after the services, it says extra compensation. So at the time, we entered into this contract with Bob Martin to be the city manager for a certain period of time. He was not given any compensation at all. So I read this and said, okay, I think I can vote for this. I don't think I have a charter issue with this, because I read this and said, okay, what would happen if we had the contract with Bob and we said, Bob, we're going to pay you $50 per hour, and everybody agreed to it, and then we come to the chief's deal, and the chief's was 25% whatever over his salary, and we decide now that we want to change the compensation that we have already awarded Bob Martin. That's how I read this section, is that it prevents you from going in and changing compensation after you have already entered into the contract or the services have been rendered. That's my interpretation. But I just felt I needed to bring it to council, just so you had an opportunity to review it. Bob was never given any compensation, so I don't see this as extra compensation. He had no compensation at all. Contract was entered into, services were rendered, and now all we're doing is providing him with an opportunity for payment of those services. So I didn't see where the section was necessarily controlling, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. But I'm going to vote for this.
Pretty much that whole diatribe is kind of moot. We didn't have a contract with Bob.
You did.
Bob agreed to be the city manager.
You had a contract.
No, we didn't have a contract. We had an agreement with Bob he would be the city
That's a
manager,
contract.
so.
You don't have to have it in writing.
You let him finish.
For God's sakes.
think there's-
Okay, so with that long-winded explanation of what you just provided to us, so now you feel that you've got some wrinkle that we can actually do what we intended to do all along? So.
Oh, I think
We have a first,
We have a motion, we have a
and a
support.
second.
Call the question.
Good grief.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
You earned it. You earned it. And we're learning about the charter at the same time.
Well, we have had, I don't, never mind. I was going to say there's been instances of not following the charter in the past, so it's good every time we're taking a look at it, so.
Another section to learn.
Okay. Consider approval of the purchase of the two Life Pack 1000 automated external defibrillators.
Chief, I'm going to save you some time. I'm going to make the motion to approve the purchase of two Life Pack 1000 AEDs for $4,306.50.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I appreciate that, Mr. Kramer, but I brought the lieutenant here just so he could speak to that issue.
Thank you.
You were very effective, Chris.
Well done.
Best presentation today.
Consider approval of the 3 sets of firefighting turnout gear.
I was going to make the motion to approve, to waive the, there's two motions. Motion number one is to approve, motion is to waive the formal bid process. Is that, do I have to make a separate motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, that's my first motion.
Yeah.
Second.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye. Second motion is to approve the purchase of 3 sets of firefighting turnout gear from Apollo Fire Equipment in the amount of $6,267.
Second that.
Yeah, this is already a budgeted item, so
And it's consistent with the stuff we
That's
had
correct.
before,
Yeah, it's
so
just
it's all
over the $5,000
compatible.
limit, so.
that's great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Bob, 50/50 sidewalk program, 2016.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we move forward on this program, we just wanted to bring it to the council's attention, the due diligence and the homework we did to make sure the council understands how this program's going to work, and that'll give my department direction how we're going to work. So this year, we have $20,000 in a budget line for the 50/50 sidewalk program. The last time we ever saw this work in the city was as far back as 1998, okay? With that said, we did a lot of crunching of numbers, talked to some private contractors, and then looked at what the price of concrete we could get and the charge that we would need to put it down. And instead of getting real weird about square foot, we came down to individual flags of concrete. And a 5x5 square, 5x5 flag, which is 25 square feet, would cost the homeowner $125. A 4x4 would be $80. And we're ready to go forward with this program. With that said, we think 20,000 is going to diminish pretty quick once we start moving forward on this, but it could be a really nice program.
Bob, one question. How does one apply?
Call
I'm calling right now.
Mary Ann at the DPW office. 248-437-6914.
All right, I'll make the motion to approve the 50/50 sidewalk program 2016 for the fiscal year 2016-2017 as presented in the amount of $20,000.
I'll support. I do have a statement I'd like to make, though. I favor the 50/50 sidewalk program to incentivize the repair of cracked, heaved, or spalled concrete flags to remove ankle sprain, toe trips, and destabilize footing hazards. I also believe it's important to remember this is a city contribution made from tax dollars to make our sidewalks safer. I'd like to establish guidelines for the use of the tax money funding this program to assure it's being used for safety reasons rather than beautification of people's properties. I'd like a file to be created and photos taken of the damaged areas that intend to be repaired. And I'd like to try to establish some kind of standards. I'm thinking like a 3/4 inch, what's our typical trip height hazards.
It's moved around over the last couple of years. At one point, it was 2 inches, which I think is far too big.
Oh, that's crazy,
Yet a
yeah.
2-inch is very visible.
Right.
And I don't think too many people trip on a 2-inch because they see it. It's the one that's a 3/4 inch that.
Yeah.
So I think 3/4 to 1 inch is the number we have to look
Yeah,
at.
I think that that's perfectly appropriate. The same with the gap of something substantive enough that someone might lose a heel into the gap where they would twist their ankle or something of that nature. And a
Tim and I
surface of
discussed
spalled concrete of like a quarter of a flag would end up being the minimum that we would end up addressing. I just don't want to see this money ended up go to, someone's got a crack in their sidewalk and they get for half cost the entire front of their house repaved. So I just don't think that that's appropriate, but I think it's perfectly appropriate for us to try to end up impacting the safety of people that are walking and biking and pushing carts and things down the sidewalk. So,
Could I comment on that?
Yes, sir.
I run a lot from my wife.
precisely, yeah.
I run a lot in the neighborhood, and I run over some really rough sidewalk. I would love to stop and go up and knock on some of those doors and say, hey, you know, we have a program now. And
I think that's a perfect opportunity.
Lake Street is in very rough shape on both sides of Pontiac, on both sides of Lake Street, in fact. With that said,
Any of the streets that have the large
totally
mature
agree,
trees,
but I want you guys to be aware of one thing. It's very expensive. The way we can do this at this price is when we get a group of sidewalk flags together, then we order a shipment of concrete. If we order less than, let's say, 5 yards or 2 yards at a time, and then you move around from this street to that street to this street, added charges. LaChance Concrete, I'm sorry, Hornet Concrete is working very closely with us on this, and I think we have a very special deal here. And this could be something really nice for our community, and I'm so glad you brought it up to me.
One thing, Councilman Kibble, I think you said before that we don't want the whole budget being used on somebody's entire front yard, you know, I mean, so,
Right, it should be demonstrated that there's a failing in that
think that's
particular
important. I think
flag
that-
of concrete.
If there is a failing due to a city tree heaving, we take that and do that all the time now. This is for added areas in front of somebody's driveway that has failed, that is cracked, deteriorated over years and years. We like the fact that homeowners are gonna step up, and this is all part of the beautification of the city of South Lyon, and better for families walking with strollers and stuff like that. I think it's awesome.
You know, Bob, there's a couple places where I've seen several flags in a row that are in real bad shape, and I think what we have to do is just leave it to your discretion, is that if it looks that bad and your guys are there doing 2 flags that are really bad, then finish off that third, and if the homeowner's willing to pay, they're willing to pay. I think we have to give you the discretion. If you think somebody's just beautifying their property, that's one thing, but I have seen stretches where there's 3 and 4 pieces of sidewalk, and they are in really, really bad shape. So I think if you just limit to 1, you know, I think that's crazy. You know, if it needs to be fixed, fix it, for Pete's sake.
But if it doesn't need to be fixed, that's my point. If it doesn't need to be fixed, don't pour it just because it looks nicer to have the whole thing the same color.
Bob, you make you just.
Yeah, it's at your discretion.
Yeah, your discretion, Bob.
This could be so successful going forward that next
Absolutely.
year we might put 30,000 in the program.
And I don't think we need to dictate, okay, only 1 square.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody's got a junk driveway, it needs to be
Oh, I
fixed.
agree
Yeah.
with that, I agree.
Yeah, I don't
We're gonna-
I trust your judgment.
We're
at that
gonna do a
point.
really good job, and the council's gonna be real proud of the department over this.
I want us to
Okay?
be able to truthfully look people, taxpayers in the face and say, we're not just dolling up somebody's front yard. I want us to say, we fix stuff that causes a potential hazard to people in our community. Simple as that.
You'll be taking pictures, won't you, Bob? There you go. There's your
That's
evidence.
all I'm asking.
There it is. Simple solution.
T-shirts when you run. 50/50,
50-50.
you know, sidewalk
50-50.
replacement.
That's actually a good one.
Have a motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Bob? Discussion of the downtown.
I have something.
Oh, one.
You know, I have nothing.
Oh,
What are we doing? Are we doing discussion
Well,
of
what
the
are we doing?
downtown?
Downtown?
Yeah,
you
okay,
asked
all
I
right.
didn't see, I was looking at Glenn, sorry. Apologize.
I'll wait till after you.
I'm just here if you have any questions.
I do have a question. I don't know how much you can disclose, but hopefully you can shed some light. Big question a lot of people have, and again, if you can't disclose all the details, please say so. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I will. Hotel, torn down, salvaged, partial repair. That's the big question everybody's asking, and I'm trying to get an answer.
Sure. I've maintained constant contact with the construction person who's representing the family. The construction is certainly, it's HCI Construction out of Mesick, Michigan. Good friends of the family have done excellent work in Milford and other local communities. They have hired a very good preservation architect out of Ann Arbor, XO Studios, and they are now preparing blueprints for the full restoration of the building. The family has okayed that, so they do not have all the final costs, so I think they are unwilling to give the final go-ahead for the actual construction. They're waiting for the drawings and final cost estimates.
So it's safe to say that, I'll phrase it another way, it's safe to say it has not been determined that it's being completely demolished. That's not on that's off the table right now.
Absolutely. At a minimum, they would save almost entirely, I believe, from everything I've heard, they would save the entire first floor and exterior. And the last I heard from the architect, Mr. Aaron Vermeulen out of Ann Arbor, who said that they would be, it appeared they would be retaining the second floor facade facing Lafayette. Everything else would be, as my brief conversations with Mike Kennedy and the building department, all the inside the brick envelope will be all completely brand new, meeting all codes.
Okay. My next question is, and I mean, we pay you, so I feel like ask
Sure,
you.
sure.
How many, do you have any bites for businesses? Anything? Give us some nuggets that may want to come in.
Oh, we've been, definitely.
Where are
There's
we
a
at?
lot of activity on, I will say that we have 2 restaurateurs looking. I've given liquor license information to 2 realtors. We have a kitchen store looking in negotiations. We have an art supply store in negotiations. We have a business which would like to, outside of the downtown, build an industrial facility on a small industrial lot. We do not have much available. We have 1 or 2 lots on Mill Street. But there's a lot of activity right now, and I'm still working with the Bonner family on getting estimates for the repainting and the interior white boxing of 111 North.
Okay. Because I thought your summary was very, very nice last time, so.
Thank you. Thank you. I gave another report. I apologize. I did not finish it until today on the status. Councilman Kurtzwell asked about the report on the role of the committee and myself as a point person and the hotel.
Well, I mean, I'll just end by saying that, you know, I look at the last few years, and we didn't have much coming in. I mean, we had some things, but not as much as what's on the docket that you're presenting today, so
Yeah.
I think it's working, so thank you.
It's exciting. And we actually have had 2 different developers approach us. And I'm not going to use the name because they wanted that in confidence, but I think in the next couple months, you're going to hear some very exciting news about major redevelopment.
Thank you.
On the committee, Tim, did you come up with a decision as to whether or not this committee is governed by the Open Meetings Act?
Well, I've given that some thought. I think we're going to have to, I'm going to talk with Bob. I think we need to know more about what this committee is.
It's advisory? They make no decisions, they don't bind
There's
city
been
council?
there's been no action to even form the committee. There's no information about what this committee is, who's on it, what its goal is.
I thought
whether
he
it's even
gave a,
sanctioned by council.
I thought he gave a list of, the hotel would include the city manager, the safe built officials, support staff, city code, city water,
Just got that today.
historical.
Well, I'll follow up with Bob.
Yeah, I think it's an advisory recommendation. They have no authority to set policy at all, and that's where you fall under the Open Meetings Act, but.
Well, and one of the questions will become whether the council needs to take any action to recognize or even to take any action with respect to this committee.
There will be, I think, as we discuss the finances of the total project, once the total project cost is identified, and once I meet with the family and the rest of the building owners, I think there will be an opportunity for recommendations to be made that the city may or may not want to participate in some of the financial incentives, which could definitely affect the total project cost. And at that point, other than, that's just a regular part of my job if there was a committee. I see the committee really as, I have no real institutional memory because I'm new here, and I suggested that prominent staffers and people give me some background if and when I need it.
You know what else I want to bring to your attention, Bob, is I'd like to bring recognition, and I don't know if the city does this, maybe you could do it, to Providence Medical Center. They are out there in that heat last week. They're working on the facade. I think it is wonderful to be able to see the businesses starting to make an investment in the community by taking care of the exterior of their building. They're doing a lot of work over there. It would be nice if the city, maybe at the end of the project, sent them a thank you and asked them for making an investment in South Lyon and get some sort of recognition for it. I also want to bring attention to the Presbyterian Church on Lake Street. Just love those Presbyterians, see what they're doing over there. Well, I'm telling you, they're doing a great job. They too were out in the heat, over 100 degrees last week. They were adding painting. If you look at their church steeple now and look at the white trim that is now on that steeple, look at the new landscaping they've put in, I think they definitely need a thank you for what they're doing, and they're right in the downtown. These are downtown businesses. I'm not pulling somebody out there on, 9 Mile Pontiac Trail. This is downtown. And I think we need to thank the South Lyon Theater for the repainting and the adding of facade improvements to their property. It looks great. My understanding is that the times that I've been in that theater, the house is almost packed. She's really making an incredible effort to redo the facade of that building. And I just think that people need to be recognized and need to be thanked. They're spending money here doing this. So I know I'm going to send these individuals thank yous personally and thank them for doing what they're doing. It'd be nice if the city would do it too.
Oh, no, I was looking like I was going to say something, but since you called
you're
on me.
next in line.
No, I think I said most of it, but actually I was thinking when you said the theater, Maggie, I saw the same. When I actually saw them out there.
Yeah.
And these guys, I mean, I don't want to make light of this. They were on a ladder, push-up ladder, and they must have been, 40, 50 feet in the air. And, they're paid for it, probably, but it was pretty cool to see them up there and really I saw the guy taking really detail, going over the facade, making it nice, and it looks beautiful. And on that note, though, I do think it's nice that the South Lyon Theater has the classic movies. They just had Wizard of Oz, so I'll put a plug out to them for anybody who wants to go see.
They have invested significantly in the building, obviously the facade, as you noted, and they have plans to completely finish the restoration of the interior, including new seats eventually.
Wow.
Is there any way you could work on a commercial rehabilitation district to provide them with some tax relief? The district would have to be defined. They amended that act in the fall, in December. So you've now got that, and I don't think anything's been done yet. Tim, has there, on defining that commercial rehab district?
Not that I'm aware of.
See, they would fall right in it.
I would like to definitely provide information to council, administration and council, because I have had discussions with council members, and I think particularly with the hotel, that's one of those incentives I think the hotel I would recommend. But I think a system for all businesses in the community, and a sliding scale for investment, and I don't know, is you need a district?
You do.
I think.
You do.
well,
I called the state on that. You do
Okay.
need to define that district.
Right.
And it has to be by contiguous properties.
Okay.
So, and the woman up there, her name is Heather something, was absolutely phenomenal
Great.
to work with. Phenomenal.
Great. Well, I'll look into it, and I had decided to actually go ahead and prepare a draft of a program proposal, and I will definitely get that to council as soon as possible, so we have it way in advance of the hotel, and recognizing others that could use it. Will do. Oh, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Add one more property to Maggie's list, of improvements. I think the coffee shop, the cafe out there, if anybody looks at their patio, that the amount of flowers and the plants that they've put out there around that fencing and everything, considering that we always talk about how the downtown, nobody has any plants, nobody has any flowers, other than we're putting out hanging on the posts and things. They've spent a considerable amount of time out there grooming that patio with the plants and the flowers, and they're all in full bloom, and it's probably the best it's looked in 10 years. So I think people should take a break and take a look, because it looks pretty good.
Great. Will do.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you so much, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Managers report?
No, we're still downtown. Anybody
No,
have
I'm not done. I'm done with
Okay.
downtown.
managers report?
Yes, Councilman Kivel had asked me a question about King Plaza and the possibility of them being connected to, or since they are connected to the city water and sewer system at this time, whether they were obligated to complete or install a sidewalk in front of their property. According to the master deed, I do believe that is required, and either our building department or Safe Built will be sending a letter to the property owner reminding him of his obligation to install that sidewalk, and a deadline has been set of September 26th of this year to hopefully get the sidewalk installed prior to the end of the summer construction season. Item number 2, I happened to receive a email from Mike Sapo from Rotsock this morning, and he was aware that Duncan Disposal had in fact been sold to Rizzo Environmental Services. And he was just indicating that other communities that are members of Rotsock, to include Southfield, Milford Township, are currently serviced by Rizzo, and that they've been happy with the service they've received. So it's a vote of confidence for Rizzo. The last thing, and Bob can add to this if he wishes, but a little update from both Water and DPW. The sewer replacement has started on Dorothy Street. They've started improvements on the McCaddy Park overflow parking lot. And of course, they're planning on, for winter, that also being used for a dual purpose of an ice rink. And Mr. Richards spoke to my last item, which is the copper and lead testings at 30 homes in the community. But Bob, if you have any additions?
You said it all, Lloyd. Good job.
Thanks.
That's it.
Council comments?
Actually, Lloyd's comment about the sidewalk, actually, that was by agreement. When we agreed to provide water sewer services to them, they overtly agreed to put that sidewalk in when that took place. So outside of the fact that it's also part of our ordinances, they had already agreed to that. The Rizzo contract, we have an extraordinary contract for waste hauling, as Tom just put tonight. Some things such as refrigerators and air conditioners and things of that nature, oftentimes haulers demand that they have those pumped down and stuff before they'll end up picking them up. Our contract specifically says is if it's put out there, they're obligated to pick it up, and it's their responsibility to attend to those types of things. So as long as Rizzo is comfortable with fulfilling our agreement, not just any agreement that they've got with other communities, I have no misgivings with our transitioning to sign that agreement with Rizzo or reauthorize it to go to them. This has been long enough. Thank you.
I just had two really quick comments to make. The first is a couple weeks back, about a week and a half ago, there was the Pumpkin Fest committee meeting, and the outpour of support from South Lyon residents who came to sit in and just kind of give their thoughts on Pumpkin Fest was incredible. We have such a tight-knit community. Everybody is so great. They came out and said nothing but positive things about Pumpkin Fest, which I just want to reiterate how important Pumpkin Fest is and how the volunteers do deserve a huge thank you. And thank you to the South Lyon residents as well for all banding together and coming to the meeting. This room was packed. You couldn't sit down. People were standing, people were outside. It was great. So thank you to South Lyon and all the support. And then my second comment was in regards to Chief. Chief, I feel kind of like earlier, I don't want you to think that we don't appreciate the work that you do, especially because you're working basically 2 jobs right now. So I don't know if it's possible to have it put on the agenda to kind of revisit your issue and explore other options, like we touched on personnel matters and things like that. But I want to revisit that. I didn't like the way that we just left it. So thank you for all that you're doing. It's not unnoticed. You work hard. You're doing 2 jobs. You should be compensated for all of that. But I kind of wanted to put that back on the agenda. I don't know if that's something that I tell you or, yeah.
I appreciate that. We'll try to figure something out.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, you guys.
Joe.
I want to start off by saying that the ice arena, I think that's great. I think that's going to be a hit. I think the parking situation, that's a Bob, we spoke about this, and you said that it's also going to be used for a parking lot. So that's going to be perfect. Hopefully we can get some awareness when the baseball games come in there. People can.
It should be done by 1st of September.
Awesome.
That's what we're hoping.
That's perfect. And then I also heard a rumor, you maybe can clarify, that there may be sidewalks going in there on the other side. Is that true or no? Next to the new parking lot that you're putting in. Because if we're going to do that, if we're doing it now, that may be a good opportunity to put sidewalks in because people are always walking out of the parking lot, walking in and out sometimes, and cars are, it's kind of a tight corner. So
The entrance.
the entrance.
I think we got that covered, Joe.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I confirmed that rumor is true. Thank you. Also wanted to speak a little bit. There was a gentleman, Frank Fogarty. He spoke last council meeting, and he took some people to task. Didn't name them by name, but I will name him. He was talking about what I took exception with was talking about Facebook. And I'll just say that I'm not afraid to share my views. I have issues sometimes with the size of government. I think it's too large. I'm not afraid to say that. I have issues with taxes. Sometimes I think we pay too much in taxes. I'm not afraid to say that, and I will not change myself or prevent myself from saying that ever in the future. I will say about Facebook that maybe it's not understood for certain people, but it is really the wave of the future. There's people from all ages, all the way from middle school, high school, all the way up to, I just spoke to my buddy, his grandpa uses Facebook. I think he's 90 years old. So maybe it's just some people don't want to get with the times. I don't know what it is. But about Facebook, it really can be good because if we recall, 3 instances come to mind. Chad Lindsay being shut down, horrific. Being shut down on private property when he's a private business owner, being told what to do, not right. Food trucks, just recently. If it wasn't for Facebook, we wouldn't have solved that. Pumpkin Fest, if it wasn't for Facebook, there wouldn't have been such an outcry and wouldn't have got resolved. So my point is, it seems as if it's not really the issue with me posting stuff on Facebook. It's more an issue with free speech. And maybe it's this person does not like my type of speech. But I will point out that Facebook has helped things. And 3 years ago, if we recall, when they were asking for the resignation of the previous mayor, this person didn't have a problem with Facebook at the time. Many people didn't. So you can't pick and choose free speech, is the point I'm trying to make. So if you have a problem with free speech, maybe you need to revisit the Constitution and stop criticizing people for speaking their own free speech. Because I can assure everybody, I will not stop posting on Facebook. When I see an issue, I will call it out. I will keep residents informed, and that's what they want to hear, and that's what they tell me they like to hear. So that will not stop, I can guarantee you. Also, on a more positive note, I do want to come back to McCaddy Park and the Little Free Library. My wife went today with my son, and it's just a really great project. All the kids had their hands in the dirt. They were digging, they had shovels, and they were really contributing, and that's what it's supposed to be about, is the kids and their education, and it was so nice to see them have a footprint in breaking ground today. So Bob, again, home run. Thank you. With that, just want to say goodnight. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice week.
Can we go backward? Can we go back to me?
know it
Please
works
don't
that
take
way.
any offense for what I'm about to say, Joe. I thought that Mr. Fogarty was saying nothing about free speech. I thought he was saying that you were on Facebook during the meetings, and that's what he was upset about. That's what I thought. That's what I took it as.
Well, that's my
Not
free
me.
speech as well, if I want
That's
to.
free speech.
No, I know. I agree, but I thought that was the issue was during the meeting was I.
If you want to be in his camp, that's fine with you. That's not up to me.
No. I'm not taking sides here. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
All right.
Point made, Nick. Good. Bob and myself took place over, we did a little ribbon cutting for TCBs. Amazing. They talked me into eating some of that, and I don't eat that ice cream or anything as a rule, but I'm going to make definite exceptions now because it's extremely good. And the building looks phenomenal. The turnout was great. And that's just one more development that's been added on to increase what we've already starting to see happen when this building owner is starting to put a little bit more emphasis on what their properties look like. And they brought a great product to town. And while I was there, I talked to the owner, and his best friend was there, and he was looking to figure out something to do in South Lyon. He's got money to spend and doesn't know what to do, but he wants to do it here. So I'm sure that will project a little farther in down the line. He talked to Bob, and we'll see where we go with that. The school that is being done, the new school, if anybody's gone by there, it's moving fast. And so it's going to be very, very cool to see another school pop up there. Again, we got some of the best schools around, and we're just adding to one more to the list. And I'm liking what I see by some of the business owners are starting to take some pride in their ownership of their buildings, old and new both. I think the timing's right. So it's starting to rub off a little bit. We still have a lot of issues, but we're starting to see some progress, and that's all we can ask for right now. I hope we can push a little bit and get a little bit more. So a lot more people are wanting to get involved, which is great. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I have just a couple of issues. I didn't go to the Wednesday meeting regarding Pumpkin Fest, primarily because I didn't want to have a quorum of the city council there. But the friends of mine who did attend universally told me how well represented we were by Chief Collins and Mike Kramer and Mary Dodakis. Everyone was effusive in their praise of your work. So on behalf of the rest of us, thank you. The other thing I have is was it Friday? We had the splash and spray in the parking lot. I have a grandson who's really enamored with fire trucks, and we thought that getting him wet under a fire truck would be a lot of fun for him. There were several hundred, maybe 300, 400, 500 people there, running around, getting wet. Everyone had a great time. Firefighters couldn't have been nicer to everybody. They were very, very responsive and helpful, and helped park cars. A lot of stuff that certainly isn't their job description. And I appreciate it. I thought it was great. My grandson had a great time, and his highlight of the day is he got high-fived by the chief. He thought that was pretty cool. That's all I have. Thank you.
I'm good. I've said enough tonight. Thanks.
I'd like to take a few minutes and respond to also Frank Fogarty, who spoke at the last meeting. And what I'm going to do is spend a couple minutes addressing his inaccuracies, quite frankly, from what I considered his politically prepared narrative. The comment that Frank made and the comment that I'm going to address is when Frank Fogarty said, since the election, very little has been accomplished. Well, you know what, Frank? This is just a flat-out lie. Since the election, this council has been one of the most productive councils in decades, even though some personality remnants of the old regime and the incumbents remain. For example, to go over some of the highlights that this council has accomplished since the election, we now have discussed performance bonds have been clarified, and there's an understanding of separating the fees from the bond itself until the bond has been satisfied. We've done an approval of Lexington Place condo utilities, which several years ago, until Phase 5 was done, was unheard of. We also discussed the job responsibilities for the Economic Development Coordinator, and for the first time in the history of this city, we hired a full-time development coordinator. For the first time in the city's history, we have adopted the 2012 International Property Maintenance Code, and that could have been done 10 years ago with some of the incumbents on this council, but it wasn't done until after the election. We approved a master plan, which prior to the November 2015 election was sitting in a drawer with dust on it. We amended Chapter 58 of the Code of Ordinances to add provisions regulating vapor products in response to this growing industry that has alarmed parents, some members of council, and the community at large. We adopted an unsafe structure ordinance, which could have been done decades ago, but did not happen until after the November 2015 election. We, for the first time in the history of the city, participated in a vision planning session, and we adopted our first ever strategic plan for 2016-21, and there was no council-approved strategic plan prior to the November election. We also engaged in working with the school district and working with Lyon Township with respect to the Safe Routes schools. We are on our way to getting a food truck ordinance for public property. Private property has been accepted from this regulation through hard work. As to budget issues, let's talk about some of the budget issues, Frank Fogarty. As to the budget issues, some members of council learned for the first time that the millage on the sewer bonds was not fixed at 2.5, but rather it could be adjusted upward to satisfy the servicing of the debt. Why this was not known decades ago, I will never know. But this hole in the dike has been plugged, and it was plugged after the November election. Council also learned several meetings ago that it approved a budget resolution for a millage for a building authority and land acquisition, which included a lower millage than otherwise would be the case. And now we know that we have insufficient funds to cover the debt on the servicing of the bond. This knowledge was not available until after the election. Let's talk about Volunteer Park. Volunteer Park, we spent some time tonight talking about it. When I was appointed to the Park and Rec Commission under Jeff Potter, dealing with Volunteer Park was something we were going to do in the future. And the past couple of meetings, we actually are coming to a plan where Volunteer Park is actually going to be developed. And I sat here after the election and approved money and funds in order for those concept plans to be paid for. Next, to Harvey Waddell. You've been sitting on council for about a decade, but it never occurred to you to pass a motion requiring the city manager or someone in their office to provide quarterly amendments to the budget. I proposed that simple amendment. Budget accountability now is a matter of quarterly review. That has not been done only until after the November election. The Cultural Arts Commission, for the first time in its history and formation, is now actually receiving grants, something prior to the election was not occurring. We are now getting around to, after decades of complaints, to finally getting the Dorothy Street sanitary sewer problem solved. Wasn't done 5 years ago. It's now being done after the election. We approved our first annexation of property into South Lyon after decades of sitting here with nobody wanting to buy our land. We now have a simple succession plan in place. We also have a reconstruction committee that was formed to facilitate the reconstruction and rebuilding of the South Lyon Hotel. This council moved fast. They made sure that we now have a structure in place for the most part to deal with a very tragic situation in our city in order to help rebuild. And tonight, what did we do? We asked for more investment in our city by passing a 50-50 split with respect to developing the sidewalks. This is not to mention the general administration tasks that have been approved, the road closures, the permits, the contracts, the sale, and the purchase of equipment. So quite frankly, Frank Fogarty, you're a liar. You're just a flat-out liar. And your problem is, Frank, is that you're political. The problem is you walked in here, you made a political statement, and you didn't have any facts. You're status quo, Frank. That's the problem. That is the problem. That's why the downtown looks the way it does. It's been the failure of your political circle, your political bosses, to move forward and get this city on the right track in the 21st century. So Frank Fogarty, tonight I'm calling you a liar. Next, I am going to address the issues of several things that I found very interesting in the past several weeks. I had an opportunity to go to Bay City and visit the Tall Ships of America. It's a 501c3. I also had the opportunity to be in Manchester for the chicken barbecue last Thursday. And being a prior board member of Active Faith, I've had an opportunity to view the relationship of 501c3s with respect to the business community. I can't tell you how pleased I was to hear Pumpkin Fest say tonight that they are working with Diane's Dollhouse, including a business in the community. All three of these 501c3s have one thing in common. They are successful because they include the business community. That is why they're successful. If you had been to Bay City and saw these tall ships and the relationship this 501c3 had with the downtown area of Bay City, I walked away and said, now that is the way to run a festival. It was unbelievable, the interplay between the 501c3 organization and every single business in that community. Same thing with the Manchester Chicken Barbecue. You can't put on a barbecue like that with 600 volunteers that are serving chicken from 4 to 8 o'clock at night unless you had the complete and total cooperation of your business community. You're going to be mediocre if you don't have your businesses online with you. So I would encourage every nonprofit organization to please consider the business community, consider exactly what they want, consider their complaints and their issues. Don't ban them, don't criticize them, bring them into your fold and make your organization as inclusive as possible. Thank you very much, everyone, for inviting me into your homes tonight. Stay cool until next time. Have a great weekend.
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.